Climbing hard things is about having a really difficult challenge presented to you, learning how to perfect every single part of it, and then put that all together and execute.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Struggle Climbing Show. It's me, Ryan Devlin. I am your host, and today we have got a Climber's Climber episode for you. A Boulderer's Boulderer episode for you with Ethan Salvo. Young Phenom Ethan Salvo. Is he still young? What is young? Not me. I'm 46 and hurt my back falling like 3 feet off a boulder in Vegas last week. Ethan's still young, though, although he's climbing like he's not young. How do I phrase this? I mean, his ascent through the difficulty of bouldering has been wild. I mean, he went from V1 to V15 in 5 years. I went from V3 to V3 plus in 5 years. But that's why Ethan's an elite climber and I am a podcaster. But there's so much to be learned from Ethan, from his rapid ascent through the grades, yes, but also what he's learned about himself, about mastery of movement on rock, on different kinds of rock, and especially on the very difficult, challenging, but beautiful granite rock that you find in Squamish, which is Ethan's home base when he's not living out of his car, like when we caught up for this conversation. In fact, he was in Bishop, California, having just dispatched one of the final projects on his list from when he was younger, Lucid Dreaming, the classic V15 test piece out there in Bishop, and he did it with such poetry, with such grace, and we talk about all of that in this. When I call him the Climber's Climber, I mean this is a guy who really embodies climbing, who climbs for the love of the game, who isn't out there just trying to like be flashy and make money and just send grades to send grades, although he started wanting to send grades because I think a lot of us, most of us probably just want to send grades, at least for a while. But what he's learned in a very kind of potent short amount of time as a boulderer, he shares here today. And we do some really like interesting, fascinating, nerdy deep dives on movement and specific holds and specific projects and shoes and custom resold shoes for projects. And so, yeah, this kind of covers like the gamut of stoke as a climber, learning, and then what it means to just do this silly thing that we're all doing, which is basically finding the hardest way that we could get to the top of a rock and then choosing deliberately to take that hard way instead of the easy way. We talk about all that and more in this one. I really enjoyed this conversation with Ethan. And then as a bonus episode, we touch on it a little bit in this episode, but as a bonus episode, Ethan uncorks this conspiracy theory and just the bizarre events around the disappearance of Portable Boulder, the little, 1 foot high boulder that I managed to climb. It's one of my prouder ascents, to be perfectly honest, that I managed to climb up in Squamish, but then shortly thereafter it disappeared and was gone for months and then reappeared in Bishop with googly eyes on it. And there's such an interesting web of events and theories and just weirdness around that. And so Ethan shares all of that with us. And at the time of speaking, Portable was safe, swaddled in blankets and in the back of Ethan's car, ready to be returned up to Squamish, which should be happening right around now. But just a fascinating, like totally weird look inside the disappearance of Portable for the bonus episode. And on the back end, I'll tell you more about my climbing, my training, my recent injury, what that's been doing to my mental game as a nascent boulderer here. We'll dive into all of that on the back end. But first, let's go ahead and chalk up and bring some more magic into our climbing lives with Ethan Salvo.
Can you hear my space heater? It's freezing in my basement right now.
I can't, no. But
okay.
Are you out east?
I'm in Kentucky.
Okay, yeah. So you're getting the cold snap out there.
We got blasted, dude. Like, kids are off school all week. It's freaking Armageddon over here.
Wow. Full on. Yeah, my folks live back east, like near Toronto, and they've been texting me about it. It sounds nasty.
Yeah, but they're used to it up there.
Yeah, totally.
I grew up in Michigan, and like, it's actually kind of comedic to me down here. You know, you get like 4 inches of snow, and people are filling bathtubs with water. It's like the zombie apocalypse that everybody's preparing for. And I'm like out ripping it up in my Prius, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's the same thing in like Vancouver area. Like it'll snow like a couple inches and no one knows how to drive.
Right.
And then like buses are slamming into cars on the street downtown and just chaos.
It's so good, dude. It's so good. It's funny. Yeah, so I didn't know that. So did you grow up in the Toronto area then before moving west?
Yeah, I grew up in Markham, so it's like 40 minutes east of Toronto, downtown, just like normal suburban area.
Yeah.
And then moved to Squamish like 3.5 or 4 years ago now.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I just so associate you with Squamish.
I kind of associate myself with it too. It's fun. Like every now and then I'm like, oh right, there like was a life before rock climbing in Squamish.
Yeah.
Kind of easy to forget sometimes.
What is it up there? I was climbing in the red with a guy this fall. He's a doctor and
Yasser.
Yasser. He's from that. Do you know him? Okay, cool.
Yeah, totally. I know Yasser pretty well. Yeah.
Oh, right on. Yeah, we were talking about, because outside of Toronto, what is it? King's Head? Is that the name of the...
Lion's Head.
Oh, Lion's Head. That's it. Yeah. That looks pretty sick.
I've actually never climbed there. I'm thinking of going back in the springtime to visit family and maybe try and like go for a week there. Because when I was living back home, I was mainly just bouldering at the time, and
Right.
I like started lead climbing for competition climbing's sake, but it wasn't like something I was doing outside ever. But Lion's Head is like known to be the best bit of rock climbing you can do in Ontario. I've been there for like the touristy hiking stuff because it's just gorgeous, like Caribbean blue water and bone weight cliffs and beautiful forest. But yeah, I'd love to go back and climb there. It looks really good.
Yeah, it just looks gorgeous, man. Right on. Well, cool, dude. I'm excited to have this conversation. I appreciate you taking the time. You've been all over the place.
Yeah, of course.
Where are you at right now?
I'm in Bishop right now. I've been here for the past maybe 2.5 or 3 months.
Oh, yeah, it's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while here.
I saw you for a second, briefly, in Squamish when I was filming with Jordan Cannon. We were filming with Portable.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day.
So that was a little while ago. Oh God, speaking of Portable, do you have her? Is she there with you?
She's buried in my car right now in a layer of blankets.
Really?
Yeah.
She's warm. You're keeping her
Nice
warm.
and warm. I don't want it to get... There's a lot of stuff in there. I'm worried about it like bouncing around and taking some sort of damage in the car. So keeping it safe.
Yeah, I like that you're worried about Portable getting damaged and not your car.
My car is beyond repair, honestly, at this point. It's seen worse. No, it probably hasn't seen worse days. Definitely seen better days. It's in rough state, but it's doing the trick.
Well, I'm sure to a hero's welcome for Portable after her long, or his or its long journey. So I try to follow a little bit of a format with the podcast, Ethan. And so like we talk about training, nutrition, tactics, mental game, and like kind of beyond. We can wander all over the place, but I'll see if I can loosely keep us on some sort of structured rails here. But I have to say, just at the outset, I've been so looking forward to this conversation. I just want to congratulate you on your accomplishments up to this point, and also thank you for like putting out like such cool, thoughtful, engaging content.
I appreciate it.
It's probably hard for you as a Canadian to take compliments, so I'll just continue to try to make you feel at ease here on my American podcast.
Thank you.
and accomplished you are, dude. It's really interesting when we first started talking. You said that you had only been out in Squamish for a few years now. Was it like 4 years or something?
Yeah.
So that's not a long amount of time. Obviously, you were climbing back east before you moved to Squamish, but you moved to Squamish because you fell in love with the climbing there, the granite, but especially it was the room, right? Like you walked into the room and you saw Event Horizon, you saw Dreamcatcher. Is that what ultimately like hooked you to move out there?
Yeah, that was definitely the thing. I mean, Squamish is the place to move if you're a young Canadian rock climber and you want to take yourself seriously and like live somewhere where you can really perfect your craft and like grow into it. Canada's not like the States where you have multiple climbing meccas where you can kind of like pick and choose the style of the area you want to live in, the type of climbing that's there, the rock. It's like you have so many more options, or just major cities that are central hubs to a lot of areas. Canada's not set up like that. I mean, Squamish is like number one, I'd say, because the town center is like 5 minutes away from the chief, and you have like quite an insane amount of established climbing and projects and bouldering, sport, trad climbing, all there. There's ice, alpine climbing, like whatever it is, it's there, and it's like easy to access. You've got Canmore in Calgary if you want to be a limestone sport climber or just big mountain climber. You've kind of got Montreal for like the gym scene, and there's also like quite a good bouldering scene out there that's like not as known about. Really good rock, cool. Lots of projects. But
yeah,
I mean, I grew up snowboarding a little bit. That was like the first sport that I did, and then swimming. But I remember like we would have a family friend every now and then that like was really excelling in snow sports, and you'd like hear the parents talking. It's like, oh, so and so is like really growing into this, and like now they're gonna move west so they can pursue it. So it was like kind of always the thing of living in the east. If you're gonna do anything in the mountains and that's what you want to do, you just have to move west. And so that made sense. And then moving west just meant Squamish to me. But then like going to Squamish, the room was really like what motivated me to move there and what kept me there for a while. I was initially gonna like check out Kelowna and Nelson as like other places to live. And then I just went to Squamish and stayed, mainly because I really wanted to climb like V15. It was like very much a number pursuit and like a how do I get myself moving forward in a climbing career? It's like, well, I could do like the second ascent of like the most famous boulder problem in the country that's been tried a lot and not done. It's like, okay, if I put my name on that, that'll be good for me. And that whole pursuit has then snowballed into like something totally different.
Man, what a journey. And it's just like, it's crazy because it seems like it was like a decade journey and it's just been like a few years basically. When did you start climbing? When like how old were you?
I think it was November 2017. So I was 15 and I'm 23 now.
So less than 10 years.
Yeah.
That's like a wicked rapid ascent. Well, I'm excited to peel back on that and talk about that journey because that's like lightning fast. But first, let me enter into the conversation. I've like skipped my own format here because I've just been so engaged in the conversation so far. But I want to start where I typically start these interviews, which is to talk about struggle. And through the lens of rock climbing, Ethan, like what does struggle mean to you? What's your relationship with it?
Struggle feels like something that I find inherently attached to climbing. But I think because I often seek it, I guess like struggle is what makes climbing interesting to me a lot of the time. It's like struggling to do something and pushing and pushing and pushing through it forces me to adapt and learn and grow in lots of different ways, and then eventually become the person that can then stand on top of that rock. And it's just this like, I was chatting with Nina recently and I like was describing like feeling like climbing right now is sitting on a train and looking out the window, and there's all these different flashes of things going on in the world through all the different windows, and like every window and thing outside of it, it's like its own little world. There's just all these little things that I'm like constantly moving through, and I guess each one is like a struggle in its own right, but uniquely individual to itself. Like each challenge has been different in its own way, which I enjoy a lot. And so I'm constantly in pursuit of like struggle and challenge in a way. But each thing is uniquely different, and it's really cool to just like sit there and use climbing as this like vehicle for life and have all these things come in and out and pass you by and experience a lot of different stuff.
I love that metaphor there. Very cool visual. Well, thanks. We'll peel back more on that, on the struggle aspect of it as we dive into some of these other chapters and uniquely through the lens of bouldering, which will probably carry most of the conversation here, although you are a very accomplished route climber as well. And I predominantly route climb, but I'm trying to be a boulderer, so I'm going to try to focus mostly on bouldering in this conversation.
Going the other way now.
Yeah, at least ultimately in service of my climbing, I need to get stronger and a little bit more technical as a boulderer. And I got to tell you, dude, Squamish like ate my lunch. My feet were skating off that granite. It was pretty warm out there that weekend, but I can't even use that like as a crutch. Like Superfly was such a proud send for me because it was just like so hard for me. It was so hard to stay on. It just felt like I was climbing glass, man. I have such respect for you and people who excel. Sonny Trotter's been on the show, and you know, people who go out there and move really well on that kind of rock. It's just like a mystery to me.
It's like its own craft in a way, because when I moved there, I didn't climb in that way at all. Like I was cutting feet. I was extremely powerful, could barely heel hook. And just over the years of like living there, you're kind of forced to adapt, but it's a really engaging, interesting climbing style, but definitely like a frustrating place to visit if you're there for a week or two and you're like, all right, let's go climb. And you like go to grades and like the sort of things you think you'd be fine on. And all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, this is a different world.
Oh God, it was so humbling. It was good for me, but it was, man, was it humbling. I cannot wait to get back though. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I did a little bit of everything. I mean, it was just my first time out there. So we did like, you know, a day in the boulders there. And then I did a multi-pitch on the apron. And then I went out to Majestic. And then I did some single pitch trad with Amity over, I don't know, and like the smoke bluffs. I mean, it was just kind of like we're all over the place. And it was really, it was very fun. So I do look forward to getting back. But since then, I mean, you obviously travel around. And so you climb on a lot of different styles. Right now you're in Bishop. And congratulations on Lucid Dreaming. Holy smokes, dude.
Thank you. Yeah. Pretty happy about that one.
Unbelievable. I remember when I had Alex Megos on the show here, he called it the perfect boulder because it was just like a few insanely hard moves and like it's big and then you're standing on the top of it. What was your experience on that? Like what was Lucid Dreaming to you, and has it been on the list for a long time?
It's actually, I was thinking about this after I did it, but I'm like not a little confused. I guess like for the past 4 or 5 years, I've had some like very big goals that have kind of acted as like driving forces in like what to do with climbing and where to go. And Lucid Dreaming was like one of those things among many, but Lucid just happened to be the one that I hadn't done yet as of this past year. And so doing it now, I'm like, wow, like I've done all the things that I wanted to do as like a teenager. And like, damn, where do I go now? But it was an interesting experience because I mean, I first tried going to Bishop in 2022, I think. I was like living in Toronto, tried to drive to Bishop on my way moving to Squamish, and the people at the border gave me a really hard time. They thought I was going to live in America forever, didn't have ties to Canada because I was some hippie in his van, and probably was going to live in their amazing, great country and never go home. And they denied me entry 3 times that day, threatened to ban me for 5 years.
What?
And at the time, I was like, all right, I'm going to Bishop and I'm going to do Lucid. Like, super confident. I was like, I'm feeling strong. I got this. Got turned around, moved to Squamish a couple months later, and then didn't go to Bishop until I didn't try to cross the border for like a year and a half, I think. So it would have been like the winter of 23, 24, I think, was when I went to Bishop the first time. And I got spanked by Lucid, basically. Being stronger than I was when I first tried going. Yeah, I like showed up and couldn't do the jump move, like the iconic move. I could do every other move, but that move felt impossible. Like I was kind of shocked. And so I left being like, okay, I need to get way stronger, train way harder, get a little bit better, which has like never really been my approach. So I did a 2-month training cycle with Jesse Firestone before coming down last winter, showed up and planned to stay for a month and ended up staying for 3.5 months and still didn't do it. And probably tried the boulder like 30 plus days in that season, if not a little bit more. So it was kind of just like a full-on siege and like quite an emotional journey for like a lot of reasons. It's finding it like I've only ever really had this in Squamish when I'm like at a home project, but when you're like building your life around trying to climb a rock, like a lot can get tied to that rock and that place and the story with yourself in it. And I left like feeling a little bit beat down basically. And then through the season, for like many reasons, Bishop kind of just had this like sour taste in my mind. It was like proper failure and like in climbing and in life in some ways too. And just thinking when I was like, I'm kind of worried to like show up there and try again. And yeah, I had been like sport and trad climbing most of the summer and not really bouldering. Wasn't going to go to Bishop. I was thinking about going to China or Japan or somewhere wild and like get away from everything in Bishop. And then Keenan calls me in like the fall. He's like, yeah, like come to the valley. We're going to do a shoot, and I'll bring you down here. Come climb. But I show up in the valley. Next thing you know, the valley's like kind of crazy and my mind is spiraling. So I'm like, well, I'm going to bail and go to Bishop by myself and like just go back and feel things out at Lucid. And showed up and felt like I picked up like right where I left off, which was kind of a cool feeling, and took a couple weeks to kind of like be able to process a lot of things from the season before while like continuing linear progress through the Boulder. But it in the end never felt like a thing of getting stronger. Like I probably did in the past like 8 months leading up to doing Lucid, did the least amount of bouldering I had ever done, and like the least amount of training in any way. And was just like, well, I'm just gonna like show up, see how I feel, and try my best. And just like showed up, and all of a sudden everything was clicking. And it felt more of like the way I did Lucid, I think, is like quite different in terms of a movement perspective from most people. Like there's a lot of, I climb really weird with my hips and knees. So I do all these weird drop knees, and I grab the final crimp as like a kind of a side pull grip instead of a down pull to eliminate some of the swing. And there's all these little things that I basically figured out with it to make it easier to, like, an easier boulder that was harder to do. And so this season it was kind of just like about showing up and trying to like have the perfect try where like everything goes right, and less so like show up and be really strong and can dominate it, which I think is why it took me as long as I did, because there's like I have quite a few friends that have like shown up in really good form and done it quick, and you watch them and you're like, wow, that is like, you are on one right now. And I think the case for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm some like gangly lanky dude dropping my knee all over the place and like doesn't look like it should be working. But yeah, it was definitely like an interesting process. It ended up like not being what I thought it was going to be in the end.
Well, thank you for just painting such a clear picture there about the setup and the experience. I want to unpack a lot of this, but I'm going to try and go in a little bit of an order here. And so you mentioned this was one season prior working with Jesse. I love Jesse, friend of the show, Jesse Firestone, Coach Jay Fire, good dude, and very technical granite climber. That's a guy who can climb with heels, by the way, for those who are listening, if you want to get technical. Also new dad and just did like V12, V13, so he's out there crushing it. What a dude. But what did you work on specifically? Had you identified weaknesses that you were working with him, or was it a general like training plan?
Yeah, it was like a bit of a training plan. I mean, I approached him pretty last minute because I decided to go on the trip pretty last minute, and was just like, hey, Jesse, I have 2 months. I want to go try Lucid. Here's how it went last year. What can we do to kind of like prepare me? And the way Jesse explained it was that like in 2 months, we're not really going to make any major strength gains, but I'm very strong in my style. So it then shifted to like, how do we adapt that strength? So there was a lot of things with like fast twitch muscle groups, I guess, like just increasing contact strength.
And what did that look like drill wise or climbing wise?
Fast latching, like I think quick block pulls too, maybe. We were definitely working on my hip flexibility because I'm pretty immobile in like an open hip way.
Huh. Did you see improvement in that? Because that's something I've been trying to work on too. And I'm like, I don't know if this is working. Like my hips, like they just seem so immobile.
Well, I'm quite mobile. I guess I'm not very flexible. So I noticed the flexibility like increase, and my mobility range like kind of went with that. But I mean, I'm pretty lazy with like most training things. I don't stretch regularly unless there's something I'm like really trying to do, in which case I'll stretch a little bit every day. Right. But I notice when I'm like stretching consistently, there definitely is some progress through that.
And then that training, I guess that was, as you said, it was kind of a couple months you're trying to adapt for that specific trip. But aside from that focused block that you were doing with Jesse, you mentioned like you're not super into training, or historically, like that hasn't been like a huge focus for you. Is there a particular area of training that is a struggle for you, or on the flip side that like you just kind of do in addition or kind of separate from your climbing? Obviously you spend a lot of time on rock, it sounds like, but
yeah,
you know, like what is training for you?
God, it's going to sound so ridiculous, but my motto in the past year has been that training's for posers, and I just go rock climbing. No shade to anyone, that's just like my take, but that all stems from like this old Dave Graham interview that he did with Udo Newman back in the day. And Udo's asking him about training and what he does and like what it's like being so weak compared to Chris and like Danny and all these guys at the time. And the way Dave kind of explains it, he's like, you know, you don't see ballerinas going to the weight gym so they can get stronger in these positions to do crazier ballet stuff. They just practice ballet all the time. And their technique increases with their strength. And so I've always just like taken that approach to my climbing as of late. And I also just like, I don't really enjoy training. I've never really been one to enjoy like going to the gym and like sticking to a plan. Like a lot of the time with Jesse, the hardest bit was actually doing what he wrote down on paper for me. Cause I'd just be like, man, I just want to like go in the gym and rip on the spray wall for a couple hours and then go home, just like try some projects with the old heads and leave and like have a good time.
Right.
But yeah, I tend to find that like most of my climbing is projecting. And so I'm giving a pretty high output whenever I am pulling on the wall and like trying. Like majority of my climbing feels like low repetition, high output, which I think is how you strength train. And so I'm kind of like strength training through my climbing in a very specific way while like building my technique on rock. And so I kind of just like, maybe my strength trajectory is a little bit lower, but I notice like, I know a lot of people back home that like train a lot, but their applicable strength level is quite low to their actual threshold on like a 20 mil edge. If you put me on like a 20 mil edge, I can barely hang it for 5 seconds. Like it's embarrassingly poor. But if you put me on like a steep wall on a small edge, like I can pull and use my whole body and limbs together to like pull myself underneath that hold and like generate tension. So I think my like strength feels so specific to rock that I tend to just like continue with that. I have been like considering what sort of training I feel like I should be doing. Like I have some very different goals for the end of this year that I think I'm going to actually like get a regular gym pass and like weightlift and deadlift and bench press and squat and like build up my general body strength. But in terms of like climbing training, I tend to do very little, especially like finger strength training and maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in Squamish and you have the ability to get out on rock,
totally,
it just is so much more fun than hanging on a 20 mil edge. But I understand for those of us who don't have the lifestyle or the proximity, we do a lot of training so that when we go out on the weekend, we can perform. For you, you have access and the lifestyle to be able to climb a lot. And so training is like the thing that you just squeeze in here or there. Whereas for a lot of us, climbing is the thing that we squeeze in here or there. And so it's really just like a matter of proximity and maybe priorities. And so for you, you just get so much joy. I mean, similar conversations I had with Sonny Trotter and with Chris Sharma. Like if you could just climb all the time, why not climb all the time?
Totally. Yeah.
All right, y'all. I just want to take a quick second to talk about this partnership that I've got going with Kilter. It has blown my mind, you guys, how fast I've gotten stronger and more powerful, not just on boulders, but also as a route climber by training on my Kilter in my basement just a couple times a week for like an hour each time. So we're talking like a couple hours a week, and I'm now sending projects outside that are harder and doing them faster than I ever imagined I could. And I'm not just talking about like bouldery projects, but also long like endurance projects. I'm just much stronger and more confident as a climber now, having spent these sessions on my Kilter full ride. And I put it in my basement where I have pretty low ceilings. I did a creative build where I hinge it from the top. I did a whole video on that. And the team at Kilter is incredibly helpful. So I know it's a big ticket purchase. Obviously, not everybody listening to this right now can have a Kilter board. But if you have the means, I could not recommend this board enough. I've got the 10x10. It's got nearly 400 holds on it. It's got like 15,000 climbs in the database. The community is incredible. And I'm just having so much fun and getting so strong as a climber on this board. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you. If you use code STRUGGLE, you can get up to $1,000 off your setup. And I've heard from a bunch of you who have done that already, which is awesome. I'm glad you're saving money. And I'm even more glad that you're getting strong and having fun with your training climbing on your own kilter board. If you've got any questions at all, you can hit me up. You can hit up Kyle over at Kilter. I'm going to put all that information in there. I'm telling you, this Kilter Full Ride is a board unlike anything else you will ever climb on. It is that good. This episode is supported by the awesome patrons of The Struggle, the crew over there. Of course, if you are a member of the crew, then you're not listening to this because you get ad-free and early episodes. But if you are listening to this right now, can I give you just like a 30-second pitch on why I think you will get a lot of value in your life and your climbing by joining the Struggle Patreon? Okay, let's start the clock right now. Well, there's over 140 hours of bonus content, pro clinics, videos, coach chats, my training blogs, all of that is over there and immediately available if you join as a Patreon member. And then beyond all of that incredible bonus content that I think will help you to level up your training and your climbing, but also there's a community, a real community, over 1,000 climbers and counting who are psyched, who are in the group chat, the cohorts. We've got a lot of things happening in the Struggle community that just brings us all together. You know, most of us are just like amateur weekend warriors trying to get after it. And there's a ton of resources in the library that are helping us to accomplish that, but also just a ton of support and motivation. I'm really active in there, so it's just a great way to connect with climbers like you. Okay, thank you for hearing my pitch. You can get a free 7-day trial by going over to patreon.com/The Struggle Climbing Show. Check out those bonus episodes and those pro clinics completely for free for a week. No obligation. You can quit anytime, but I think you'll stick around because it really is a great community. All right, that's my time. I love you. Let's get back to the show.
Let's shift chapters here and talk about nutrition for a second. How old are you, Ethan?
23.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter yet for me, I don't think. I've been noticing it a little bit in the past year or two. Yeah.
I was going to say, you could probably have like a Red Bull and a cigarette and be fine for a few days.
Yeah, 100%. It's just pre-workout.
Whenever I run into some of those guys, like I was out in Vegas and I was staying at Emily Harrington's place, and like Nathaniel and Sean Bailey and Chris Cosser and some guys were like kind of like in the van out. They were just like parked out there, and I was like, guys, come on inside, you know, and they came in, and I was like, all of a sudden, just the mom I was like, when was the last time you ate, Sean? He's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, have some hummus and carrots. And I put out hummus and carrots. He's like, oh, wow, hummus and carrots. And so like, I'm like, do you guys eat? Do you care about nutrition at all? Maybe it just doesn't even matter at this point.
I mean, I'd say it's pretty different when I'm like living back home and have a full kitchen I can work with. When I'm back home, I try and eat like, I'm definitely not like particular with my nutrition. I'd say majority of the time I try and just like eat 3 meals a day, eat some vegetables, have like a pretty well balanced meal. Like, I don't know, good dinner for me would be like chicken, rice, vegetables, just simple.
Yeah.
Try not to have anything like overly fatty or processed all the time. Just like keep it clean and simple. When I'm living back home, I eat a lot of sushi. I find raw fish makes me feel really good. It feels like a pretty clean source of protein for me. I've also been noticing this thing in the past like year or two that like if I eat a lot of red meat the day before I climb, my skin is kind of sweaty. So I've been trying to eat more fish generally when I can. But when I'm on the road, like nutrition's out the window. Like it's eat for survival.
Right.
Even then, I like kind of forget to eat sometimes. I'm just like wandering around the desert like in a total daze. But I'm like, oh, shit, it's 4 p.m. I didn't eat lunch. I'm like, well, I guess I'll just like wait an hour and have an early dinner and go to bed at 7 p.m. But I'd say majority of my meals so far this season have been like instant ramen and a can of chicken. So it's definitely not been great.
It's not exciting, but it gets the job done. Did you say you're camping right now?
I'm living in my 2002 Subaru Outback.
Yeah.
Just car camping. Yeah, it's awful, but I love it.
Portable too, so there's less room.
Tight space. But yeah, nutrition's not really something that like I care to give like too much thought.
Yeah.
I like to eat what I feel like eating, and it makes me feel good, and if I feel good, I climb well. So
what about pre-attempt? You know, you're going up to Lucid. It was night, right?
Yeah.
When you got on that. And so like, Is there a caffeine regimen? Is there a nerd gummy situation happening? Like, what do you have before you really want to put in like a big effort?
Coffee is like a pretty good routine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try not to have like too much coffee or I feel pretty jittery. But man, like before climbing on Lucid this season, it was like, I think for like 2 weeks leading up to doing it, it was like the same breakfast and lunch like every day before trying. I'd like wake up and fry some wheat noodles and make a teriyaki sauce with that. Maybe throw in some cabbage if I had it. Fry 3 eggs. Eat that for breakfast, have coffee, and then for lunch, I would have 1.5 packs of Momofuku instant noodles. Probably put that in some bone broth and then throw a 50-gram protein can of chicken into that. Eat that thing down. And then
you're on like the 30,000 units of sodium diet per day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And then, yeah, I'd go climb. Sometimes I bring snacks. Most of the time I forget them in the car or they're buried under a bin of clothing and I'm too lazy to find it. And then I'd climb for like anywhere from 2 to 5 hours on the rig and then go back to the car and make some more noodles. And if I'm really feeling it, I'll make some canned chicken curry with my buddy Pablo.
Hell yeah. I mean, you just eat boulders, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. There's also, I will say, there's a lot of greasy Mexican food. I do eat out a lot more than the average person living in their car here. I just get lazy. Like some days I finish climbing and I feel like I'm about to pass out and I'm like, yeah, I just want to go eat the biggest burrito I can get in town.
Yeah. Now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, that's that. We can call it a good on the nutrition chapter. Let's really get into the main meal of this conversation, which is going to be tactics and mental game. And so let's talk about tactics, and we can look at some specific projects to really kind of peel back the tactical lens, and also technique, because you talked about how your climbing style is maybe different than others or many others who have done some of the things that you've done. Let's enter through struggle though. Where do you struggle tactically or with regard to technique?
I think I put the blinders on a little bit too often. Like I'm so used to like trying things for a really long time that sometimes I miss like the smallest thing where I'm like, no, this is like a hard boulder for me. It's going to take a long time. Like I know if I stick with this method, it will eventually feel easy or I'll adapt to it. That's definitely happened like a couple times. I think like most recent example was last season on Lucid Dreaming. There's like that really famous shark tooth undercling hold.
Yeah.
The most standard way that people hold it right now is like a side pull, which is like very finger intensive and like it's like a very standard, I think it's your PIP joint flexion, like this middle joint. It's really focused on that. I'm extremely weak in that way. And I was trying it like that because it also seemed the least painful. The other way to grab it is like with the point of the shark tooth like going onto your middle finger. And it seems like a much worse hold, but it is like a straight on undercut.
Huh.
I tried it with that side pull way for 6 weeks straight last year and would cut and split my skin within like anywhere from 2 to 5 tries most days trying it. And was like, well, damn, this is just like a sharp hold. I'm going to stick with it. I went to the valley for a week just to take a break, went back, and my friend Clem was there trying it with this other grip that like in the first week I was trying Lucid that season, Katie was like, Ethan, it seems better this way. You should try it. And I was like, no, definitely not my way. And then I started trying that way with Clem. And it immediately felt way better. And like a week or two later, I linked like the 2 hard moves together and was like, oh, I can do this problem now.
What changed? What was the new way?
So like instead of grabbing it like a side pull, which is nice because you can go right hand first, which makes the intro easier.
Right.
You get set up with your left hand in this bicycle and then you like roll into it and you set the shark tooth point on your middle finger. And you have to like nestle every finger into the right spot. And then where you would normally crimp on the side, I like hook my entire thumb around it. And I use the crease of my thumb to get the corner. and you can just like pull in completely with your thumb, and it moves it from it being like a crimping arm heavy hold to like an undercling wrist and lat sort of hold, which is much more my style of climbing. If I can put something into my back and like engage my lat, it's kind of game over for me. So that like subtle change changed the game for me. And for like the rest of the trip, I was kicking myself. I was like, damn, like had I been trying this like that, I think I would have done it by now. Because like by the time I figured that out, it was starting to get a lot warmer. And so I was just like trying to beat the conditions that season, and it didn't line up. But yeah, those little things like that, I think it's pretty easy for me to get like wormholed or blinded. Or on the other end of the spectrum, like back home, I kid you not, I'll show up to a boulder with a bag of 12 different shoes sometimes and sit there and like try everything, which sometimes like is a good thing to do for like very long-term specific projects. Like early on, maybe it is good to just like get that out of the way. But compared to other people I know, I can like overemphasize the most small details to the point that it like slows me down a little bit, which I don't really mind too much. Like I kind of enjoy that process of like figuring out every little minute detail and then waiting for everything to feel correct to me. And when everything is in the right place, that's when I'm sitting there and like, oh, now I will execute. Not like I can, but I will. It's like that small difference for me.
It's so interesting that you're aware of this. There's probably pros and cons to having a different mindset around entering into a boulder. Like you said, hey, if I know that if I continue to do it this way, I will send it. Maybe there's a faster way, but you've just kind of, you're more comfortable in this zone where it sounds like, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but where you move through the experimental phase faster and kind of decide on your beta, if you will, and then just start working at that. I had a conversation with Ethan Pringle not too long ago where he said over the course of his career, one of the big breakthroughs he's had is to try to remind himself that there's always better beta, that even if he's 50 days into a project and he's hanging on a rope, he's asking himself, well, can I just move my hand one more inch this way? And what does that do? And that's a challenge for me. I tend to like to decide on beta early, and oftentimes, to be perfectly honest, because I'm lazy, or lazy maybe isn't the right word, maybe it's just like time strapped, is I might get some beta from a friend of mine who's like a similar body size or something and just be like, oh yeah, that's probably it. And then a good amount of times I'll discover a different way of doing it that like totally unlocks it for me. And then I kick myself like you were doing, where I'm like, God, why didn't I just try different things? But is that a personality thing? Like, do you think maybe you're just like the type of person that likes to decide on beta and then just like work on it for a long time and have that certainty in your mind, at least, that like, this is the way I'm going to do it?
Weirdly enough, no. I think if you were to talk to like any of the friends I climb with regularly, they'll tell you that I'm a little bit neurotic, I guess, over micro beta, I would say. Like there have been times where someone will ask me how to stand on a foot and I'll talk for like 10 minutes straight. Like I've thought about everything and like how every little part operates on its own and interacts with each other to then create like a final thing. I tend to just like, a lot of the time, hard climbing for me feels like figuring out how to adapt my climbing style to something that maybe doesn't fit it normally. And so I'm thinking a lot about it in that way. In those situations, that's kind of where I get stuck in the blinders, where I'm like, oh yeah, this is the way for me. I'll like keep with it. That doesn't really mean that I stop learning or like thinking about the movement. Like I'd say, compared to most people I climb with, I'm often thinking about the little things all the time and what can be improved. But I'm not thinking about like, oh, what if I did a different sequence like 50 days into something?
Right.
In the early stage, I'll kind of like explore everything and then I'll like kind of decide what feels right to me and stick with it. And sometimes that's not always the best decision.
Well, let's look at a project specific on that. We've been talking about Lucid Dreaming, but maybe we could shift and talk about Event Horizon for a second here, which that's your hardest boulder, I'm assuming, right? That's V16, the hardest boulder in Canada. First Canadian to climb V16, is that right, Ethan?
Correct, yeah. Shockingly, there are definitely a couple people that could have done it back in the day. There's one person that like I had never actually asked him, which is funny because I'm friends with him, but there's like a Squamish Dark Horse who, like, quite honestly, totally could have done it back in the day and just didn't care to say anything. But yeah, as far as I know and most people know, yes.
I mean, it's just an incredible boulder. I've been back there, and it's just like it like boggles the mind to look at it, to be perfectly honest. And you put in a lot of days on that. Was it like 100 days or something that you put in on that?
Yeah, like over 100. I think if I had to guess, it'd be like around 120 or something.
Yeah, legit. So, talk about figuring out micro beta and all of that. And you also mentioned bringing like 12 pairs of shoes. And I think was it on that one that you essentially like customized a pair of shoes for the problem itself?
Yeah. Had a resoling friend like basically take the 2 shoes I liked using for different sections and put them together.
Hell yeah. So yeah, this is like tactic geekery times 1,000, which I freaking love. But what can you say now, just with Event Horizon and a bit of distance between that now, as you reflect on that, what were, tactically speaking, kind of what were the difference makers on that to put it together on day 120 or whatever it was?
It was definitely like a lot of trial and error. Like the interesting part with Event Horizon is that I'd say it breaks down into 3 sections. Like the bottom third is this pretty powerful, like wide compression sequence on good holds. The middle third is like super weird technical granite climbing, and then the top third is just the normal room service. Each of those 3 sections have at least like 3 different ways that you could do them. And so in my time trying Event Horizon, especially when I was trying like the higher start, the like low start to room service or stand to event, whatever you want to call it, I tried like every possible way you could think of to do that section. Eventually settled on a way that worked for doing the mid start, but was really hard to do coming from the ground. And so I kind of had to like learn every single way to do the boulder and then figure out which ways for me, like section A flowed well into which section B that then made section C the most high percentage. And so in the end, I like ended up settling with doing the bottom the way that felt like the most consistent to me, which like meant doing a couple more foot moves than the way Andy did it, but meant that like if I did the first move, I should get into the middle start pretty consistently. And then that middle section was like, there was a way that I first did it that was pretty high percentage, but very powerful. Coming from the start after doing this whole like powerful intro boulder made that like really hard to execute. And so I ended up spending like probably over a dozen ways learning how to do Nale's like original knee bar method for the beginning, which was really hard to do, but made it feel physically easier. And so it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, I'll sacrifice like how repeatable this will be to make it easy initially. And I'll just like learn this really well. And that got to the point where I could like pull on and do the V14 with the knee bar like first try most days.
Crazy.
And so it didn't really become a power thing. And then I was like, okay, how am I going to make this end boulder like extremely high percentage? So if I get here, I like should not fall. So I knew Andy had fallen up there like a handful of times from the ground, and I was like, okay, I don't want to do that. And like the last move is like this really big right hand bump, and most of the hard moves are like big right hand bumps on the boulder. So I ended up like switching that last third to like doing it away. Well, one, I like knee barred the shit out of the first section of room service, which really helped. That like avoids another hard right hand move, and then found a way to basically like do this hard toe hook on the arete that meant I could go left hand at the end. So it was just like trying every possible way, figuring out which set in each third worked well together to create like the most efficient and like repeatable way for me to do it. Because it's a power endurance boulder at the end of the day. It's like very different to something like Lucid.
Right.
Like Lucid, like you show up and some days the moves feel god awful and you like can't pull. Event Horizon was like most days, regardless of the conditions, I could like show up and have a pretty good try as long as I wasn't really tired. And so from like a tactical standpoint with the beta, it was like about figuring that out. And God, like tactically, there's so many other things to get into. Like there's the shoe part, which I really nerded out over. So like James at West Coast Resoles made like a no-edge Mira lace for me.
Right.
Which was really sweet, so I could like stand on the foot for the knee bar a little bit better. There were all these things I learned with wind, just like in my time living in Squamish. Like I know what time it will be really windy at in the room, depending on like wind direction and like whether or not. There's just like all these different little weather things I would look at and be like, okay, today if I show up at 1 p.m., I know it's going to be good. Just like because of it's like a north wind, it's going to come, there's like this pressure system coming up, it's going to circle and it's just going to blow wind around the room. I learned that on like the non-windy days, if I took 2 fans and put them on the left side of the room boulder and had them blasting, I swear to God, it would pull air into the back of the fan and slowly create a draft circling the room. So I could get like constant airflow.
Cool.
I used like an insane amount of different chalks depending on the weather. Like I had like 3 or 4 different powder types of Tokyo powdered chalk. I had their like boost wet chalk. I had wet chalk that I had made. I had different liquid chalks, do different things to my skin at night. I could write a book on all the different tactics at this point, basically. But that was one where like I figured out every little thing to make it work. And then the try I did it, it felt so easy. Like it felt like everything just went right.
God, isn't that so wild, dude? 120 days, the hardest thing you'd ever done, and then it just flowed.
Yeah. Part of me is like, I've been trying to think about this with difficult climbing. Is it like an illusion of it feeling easier because like relative to all the different times when it felt really hard, like the time where it goes well feels slightly easier or really easy because you actually did it? Or is it genuinely much easier and this whole time there was like this barrier in your mind like building up to like this is a really that was like a big thing with Event Horizon. It's like this mental block like because in my mind when I moved there I was like, this is a boulder I want to try and climb in the next decade. And then 3 years later I'm under it, like falling off the last move, and I'm like, how did I get like there's like this grappling with reality before I can actually go and do it.
This episode is sponsored by our friends over at PhysiVantage. By the way, PhysiVantage has been a sponsor of this podcast since the very first episode, and that's because I sought them out. I've been a fan and a paying customer of PhysiVantage since long before there was a Struggle Climbing show. And why would that be, Ryan? Well, because it works, y'all. Their products are made by climbers for climbers. They are science-backed, and then I have just been testing them on myself, a guy in his mid-40s just trying to get after it and level up day after day and year after year. And the PhysiVantage products have really helped me to feel better on and off the rock. My favorite products that I take every single day are the greens. I have those every morning, and I'm telling you, I'm getting sick way less than I ever used to, and I've got 2 young kids, so that's saying a lot. And then I also take their supercharged collagen before every single workout, whether it's a finger training or a climbing day, and their protein. I have their vegan protein or their whey protein, usually once a day, sometimes twice a day as like my little treat. Their chocolate flavor is like out of this world. I'll mix it in with plain Greek yogurt for even more protein, or I'll just shake it into some cold water. It's just that good. I love everything they make, and I love how I feel. If you want to push yourself in your training and in your climbing, I really do think PhysiVantage is going to make you feel better. And if you want to get a discount, you can use code STRUGGLE15 at checkout to get 15% off your order. That also helps to support me and the show, which I really appreciate, and all of that information is in your show notes. Hey, it's Ryan. I just wanted to let you know that I'm offering a free pro clinic with Dr. Tyler Nelson, answering your most common and misunderstood finger training questions. It's normally $10 for those pro clinics if you're not a Patreon member, but I'm offering it for free right now just for joining my email list. It's just, a couple emails a month, just letting you know what I am up to.
And in return, I'm going to hook you up with this private finger training clinic with Dr. Tyler Nelson, where he talks about which grip type is the best to train, how to rotate finger training methodologies for optimal results, what's the ideal percentage of max for safe and effective finger training, and how finger strength fits into smarter, safer training overall. It's like a 90-minute pro clinic, and you can get it for free by swinging over to thestruggleclimbingshow.com/strong. That's thestruggleclimbingshow.com/strong. Enter your email, and then you will get that pro clinic for free. Okay, let's get back to the show. Let's talk about mindset just in general and through the lens of struggle. And where do you or have you classically struggled on the mental game?
Yeah, when I was like first climbing, I was definitely like had a pretty poor head for climbing, like really high temper. I was like the very stereotypical young boulderer, throwing shoes in chalk bags, swearing a bunch, falling and getting upset, and moving to Squamish and like having that arrogance and like poor temper. I was definitely like, how do I say it? The old guys around town basically like poked fun at me a lot in like a very loving way.
Right.
It kind of forced me to like take a look at myself, and like mental game was never really on the forefront in like a subconscious way. Like consciously I would like visualize and think about my climbing and set goals and do all that stuff, but my behavior at the boulder was like never really something I considered until moving to Squamish and like climbing with like Tim and Peter, Ben, all these like Squamish legends basically, who are some of like the most down-to-earth guys you'll ever see when they're climbing.
Yeah.
They're super humble, having fun all the time, and they're never like getting upset when they fall or fail. Like anytime they fall, it just like brings up this point of like, what did I do wrong and how can I improve on that the next time? So they're almost never letting this negative mindset into their climbing space when they're climbing. So that was definitely something that shifted a lot over the past years.
Can I ask you just kind of a practical question on that? We kind of have the personality that we have, right? And so, I mean, you were younger and like full of testosterone and piss and vinegar and all that, but you're still relatively young, all things considered. But you saw, and maybe were even like gently encouraged to shift your mindset a bit, but then it doesn't just happen because you want it to happen. Like, did you deliberately work on certain things? Were there like moments that you tried to react differently if you blew off of a move or something? Like how did you essentially progress and make that growth in your mindset?
I'd say there was just like this tipping point for me. Like I went to Colorado in 2023 for like a couple weeks of bouldering. I had never been. It was like cool to check out a new area. I remember being down in Lincoln Lake one night and I was trying evil backwards, and all these Colorado bros just show up at the cave after a day of school or work, and the speaker comes out and the shirts come off and everyone's swearing and yelling, and it was like almost just looking at myself in a way. Like I was like getting upset. I was like, damn, this is such a cool, beautiful place. I've never been here before, and I've got to deal with these idiots now, basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I am that idiot a lot of the time. I hate being around this. All right, like there's no room for this anymore. Like I just gotta figure it out. So I like when I went back home, just started trying to think about like enjoying the space I was in a little bit more, and just like intentionally going climbing and trying to avoid being upset with myself. And like through a little bit of that, noticed that A, I started enjoying climbing a lot more, and B, started climbing a lot better just by like enjoying it more and not letting the negative things take over. I was kind of able to like be a little bit more productive with my own thoughts and like how I'm thinking about climbing and my relationship to it. And then that fall kind of started reading a little bit more on like detaching yourself from an outcome and like Zen ways of thinking and how other like high-end climbers kind of think through that lens. And then also just started like climbing with people that were more aligned in that way. Like Keenan is someone that I've like learned a lot from climbing in that way. Keenan will like feel a lot of emotion at times. Like he's definitely not if he's like freaking, he's not gonna like fall off and like not react. But it's like this thing of like react for 2 seconds and then calm and start thinking about it. So you like still have that moment of processing. Connor Herson, like same thing, like allows himself that moment but doesn't let it in. I mean, climbing kind of like taught me how to think about things in this way, and it's now carried over into life. But instead of like having that thing that's getting in your brain all the time that you're like really upset with and thinking about, and you start spiraling. Like I tend to spiral a lot in my own brain with things and like not have the best thinking patterns at times with things that upset me. But I've just like come to learn if there's nothing I can do in this moment when I'm thinking about it to fix the problem, there's no need for it to exist right there. So in the way of like climbing, it's like if I'm super upset with myself for doing this one thing, why am I going to focus on like, why didn't I do that one thing and get really upset? Or like, why am I not the climber that should be doing this? Or like, God, I should be stronger. Those aren't like things you can fix. They're not things you can fix in the moment. Things about like, okay, next try, like when I try again, I'll try and stand on the foot this way instead of that other way. Like things like that. So just through thinking about climbing, it's kind of like cooled my head in that way. Forced me to like think about climbing in a different way too, and like become technically better and a little bit more aware of how my body moves. And then also just through like spending time with other people and having like weird life experiences over the past year or two, I've like come to like learn how to detach myself from an outcome. It almost sounds like you're detaching yourself from reality in some way, but the way I like to think of it is becoming like fully present and one with the moment. Like whenever I'm trying to climb now and like execute, there's like this flip that happens in me where I go from being at the cliff with my friends or with the people to then like all of a sudden in the span of a couple minutes, I'm like in my bubble. And that like happens many different ways, whether it's like sitting there and meditating a little bit off by myself or like putting my headphones on. So I just like block out all the noise of what's happening around me and I can like be in my own thoughts and just like looking at the rock, which is hard to do. But in doing that, it's like kind of just forced me to stay calm.
I just love everything that you just said. It's so profound. And as you noted, it not only makes it more enjoyable, but it also improves the outcome, at least more times than not.
And it like improves your, I guess, just like impact on people around you too. Like in that time in Colorado, like had those dudes been a little less aggro, I'm sure I would have had a bit of a more enjoyable day.
Totally.
Like something I've been aware of. It's like, okay, like what space am I taking up when I'm outside? It's like hard to think about that all the time, but it's a good like check-in for yourself here and there.
Yeah, I really like that reflection. We are a product of the people we spend the most time with. And if you're at the crag with a crew that's like positive and supportive and psyched, you're just by extension going to be more positive and supportive and psyched. And if you're negative or people are like down on themselves, I mean, it just rubs off. I've experienced that a lot in my life. And you noted something there too about just how you kind of are staying more in that moment, and what that sounds like is like kind of more process focused than outcome focused. But I'm curious, we haven't talked much about achievement. Maybe this is the Canadianness in you coming out, although I did note that you know, you're the first Canadian or the only Canadian, I think, to that we know of to have ascended 8C plus or a V16 Boulder. But how much is that achievement kind of pushing the top end grade or doing the thing, you know, getting the send versus getting a link? Like how driven are you by the accomplishment or whatever goal that you've set?
I've had a pretty interesting relationship over the past year with this, or like 2 years maybe. When I was younger and first starting to climb, the outcome was everything. Like climbing was about sending and how hard I climbed and the number, and like goal setting and growth to me was like trajectory in numbers and difficulty rather than anything else. And yeah, through my time living in Squamish, going back to that like group of OG climbers in Squamish, like they've really shaped that in me. They're not one to talk about their achievements or to gloat about it or to have it be the end result for them, like climbing hard things is about having a really difficult challenge presented to you, learning how to perfect every single part of it, and then put that all together and execute. So it's almost like the climbing's not done until it's like been done perfectly. Through approaching climbing in that way, I think the first time I really noticed it was climbing the Singularity. When it was done, I was kind of bummed.
Yeah.
Like, not because I didn't have my big project anymore, like there were tons of other things, but I was like, wait a minute, I can't ever go back to this thing and try to climb it. Like, I can try and do it again, but it's not like I'm trying to climb it for the first time again, where like I wasn't really sure how or when or if all of these moving parts would ever align to create this moment, like this singular thing that I don't ever experience most times that I'm there. And then like one day you show up and it's like magic and you get to be a part of that. So like through having a couple big projects end in this way where like I execute perfectly, it doesn't feel like I got away with it. I end up feeling like a little bit bummed that they're over, like especially the Cobra. Remember my friend Nat, who was like kind of the inspiration for me to start trying it. I asked him about advice trying it, hoping to get some like logistics for beta or anything else. And all he said was, you know, Ethan, you only get to climb the Cobra once, so just make sure you enjoy it. And that whole line like really forced me to slow down my process over the summertime. Like I was never rushing to get there. I'm thankful that like most rock in Squamish is pretty bullet when it's not really going to break or change over time. And so like when I look at these pieces of stone that I really want to climb, it's like this thing that is permanent and I am temporary and can change. And I know if I persist, one day I'll arrive the moment when like everything coincides. But I don't want to rush getting there. I don't want to miss anything. Like I've really enjoyed slowing down the projecting process and like learning to feel everything in that, like all the ups and downs, watch the seasons change too, like watch the snow fall over the boulder for the first time, or the leaves change, or like the air feels different and like how does that change things. I've just enjoyed like having these really, like sending something really hard is so bizarre that I've enjoyed like slowing it down and just allowing it to come to me. And in doing so, have like enjoyed projecting and climbing much more, and have also like reduced this pressure I would put on myself to perform. I think I've come to terms with the fact that in someone that's trying to be a professional athlete, there's a lot of competition for me these days. There's a lot of kids that are sending harder things than me, doing it more often, climbing bigger numbers, doing things faster. And I've kind of learned to take a step back and realize that none of that actually matters. At the end of the day, like what brands care about are who you are, what you bring to the table, the way in which you're doing things. Like I very much see a world in climbing that maybe more aligns with skateboarding or snowboarding, in which a lot of people at the top end are doing the same thing. But the thing that sets them apart is the style and the approach and like how they can present that to people. And so I've just been like, well, if I enjoy climbing in this like weird way that feels like climbing for myself, and like what climbing is for myself, but sharing that for other people, like it inherently stands out a little bit more and it's different. And like I get to share what I love about climbing to everyone. And like at the end of the day, no one's like, oh, you only climbed one 8C boulder instead of 5 this year, like so-and-so, like what's up?
Right.
It's been like this weird shift. I have noticed that like I can become really complacent and like live in La La Land a lot of the time and be like, oh, like I'll come back here another day. I want to watch the sunset under the grandpa again. Like I don't mind that. And in doing so, like take a really long time to do things, but I don't really mind. Like I don't enjoy the feeling I have showing up to a boulder when I'm like going to try and do it. Like that thought and that approach of trying to reach the achievement and being driven by it is so focused on the future that I find it's really easy to like miss out on what's actually happening around me.
I really appreciate that perspective, dude. I feel like I've been living in a lot of those waters lately myself. I'm just now, I think, discovering like the true joy of the process, which is like a nice discovery to make. And maybe there is no way to shortcut it. Like maybe we all kind of have to be driven by grades at the beginning because that's what's easy to get psyched about, and progression is fun and doing things is fun. And then maybe only in time or when the right project comes around can we really say like, oh, actually, I don't want this to end.
Yeah, I felt like when I was first coming around to this realization that I felt like other people were doing it wrong and that they were missing out. And it's like trying to force people to figure it out. But ultimately, like everyone arrives at their own destination at their own time. And it's better for people to arrive there on their own and like have that realization by themselves and be like, yeah, like you can only ever like nudge and guide the slightest bit. But eventually, like you might find that thing and come around to it. I think the nice thing, like when I walk through the boulders now, I like walk by these pieces of rock that feel like mirrors to big chapters of my life. Like when I go to the room, like I look at Event Horizon and I'm thinking about the kid I was when I first started trying it, and like not who I was as a climber, but where I was in life. And like a lot of crazy shit happened in my life over those years, like really high highs and low lows. And to just be able to like look at this piece of rock and have this uniquely human experience and interaction with it, where it like reminds me of my past and like all that has happened and I've gone through and grown through, is really beautiful and special, and also makes it easier to like look at some other piece of rock I haven't climbed that feels really difficult at the time and go, okay, I'm ready. I feel ready to accept this now. And I know it's going to be a long, strange journey, and it's probably not going to be great all the time, but it's going to change me for the better. And one day I'll be on the other side looking back and like things will be different. So for right now, I'm just going to enjoy this for what this is and like go along for the ride and see what happens.
Where does journaling come into play with that journey and that mindset and just your process overall? Because, you know, in your post, for anybody who's listening to this who hasn't spent time, just scroll back through Ethan's Instagram and you'll see a mix of photos, videos, and just snapshots of scraps of paper or journal entries that you've either put into the description, like the caption, or just kind of typed onto the photo itself. And they really strike me. They're poignant and they're reflective and sometimes almost prescient. I'm thinking about the one, a recent post that you had that you shared on Lucid, and I wrote it down here. Tomorrow the full moon will rise and so will I. Finally, everything's in the right place. I am ready. Like you called it, you know, that was Babe Ruth pointing the bat at the stands. And so can you tell me a little bit about just how you reflect and how you use journaling or just art in general as a climber?
Yeah, journaling is something that I've like gone through ups and downs with over the years. Lately, I've been trying to be a lot more consistent with it, especially like coming back to Bishop and having like life things associated here that don't feel great. Like I've just found writing my thoughts down and like learning to process them and just keeping them to myself has been really healthy. And in terms of the climbing standpoint, have realized that people actually like, not everyone, but a lot of people enjoy like genuinely hearing what my journey with something is about. And so writing that down is like an easy way to come back and like see what I was thinking and feeling. And it's also just like a nice way for me to rest. Like I've been trying to bring my journal, especially when I go climbing by myself. It's like really easy to sit there and just like get stuck in bad habits and rest poorly. And
right.
Sitting there and like slowing down with the journal and being in my own mind for a moment just lets me like reflect on things. And with Lucid, especially with that like little bit you just wrote down there, there's also almost this like, I was trying to write about it a little bit more in my like write up for Lucid, but I really couldn't find the words to like describe it properly. But almost letting the magic into your life a little bit more, and like not thinking about training metrics and numbers and like if you're prepared, but like something is like waiting for cosmic alignment to arrive so that you are like silly shit like that. Or like driving up Buttermilk Road to go sleep up in the boulders the night before I did Lucid, like there was a white rabbit that ran in front of my car and like stayed in front for like 10 minutes as I was driving slow, just watching this rabbit. And I was just sitting there thinking like, okay, here we go. Like the rabbit's about to take me like down my rabbit hole and like enter my Alice in Wonderland where like everything is weird and strange and like unexplainable by most logic, And so by like writing these certain things down, I'm almost like building my own narrative to live in that like creates a world in which I like want to show up and try, I guess. Like I've been trying Everything is Karate in Pine Creek a little bit the other day.
Oh yeah.
And it's been like this weird journey where like it hasn't been going as well as I thought, to the point that I was kind of just thinking of like cutting my trip short and going home to just like see some friends and hang out and get an early start to the season. And I was just like driving up Pine Creek Canyon blasting, what is it, Should I Stay, like the class.
Yeah.
And was just like belting the song out, and I was like not sure if I should stay or should I go. And just like walked up to the cliff, and I was like, okay, like by the time I leave today, I'll have an answer. Like I'll see what I can do, and like if I feel like staying and like continuing to try this, and if it's worth it, or if I just want to go. And like went up to the cliff that day, had an absolute breakthrough session, and then like wrote down in my journal as like kind of like, referencing the song lyrics and being like, I have my answer now, and like associating all these weird feelings and like external influences that aren't really explained. And like you read it and you're like, this is like kind of weird and doesn't make sense. But to me, it's like creating this narrative where I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, it's almost as if like the universe is like telling me to stay right now by like allowing me to perform. And like in feeling that and thinking that, I like feel like I'm in the right place doing the right thing, which allows me to try a little bit harder. Like it's not fun to show up somewhere where you feel like you don't belong there, or like don't want to be there. Mm-hmm. Your body doesn't feel comfortable there, and then be trying to do like some of the hardest shit in your life, like climbing wise. Like it's nice to set yourself up for comfort. And so I think the journaling has kind of been like a tool to create, like I said it, I don't know, at the very end of that clip in my Lucid post, I think I say something along the lines of like, I created my own destiny and I finally arrived.
Yeah.
It was like that feeling, like I knew I didn't want to, there had been people at that boulder all the time, and it was like kind of hard for me to climb with the excess noise, and like I could feel the eyes on me whenever I'd be climbing. And I knew I was like, okay, like I want to do this when it's quiet. I want to do this when like it feels up to me to do it. I knew the full moon was coming, and like Keenan and I have talked about this whole thing with like the full moon having some impact on like low gravity and all this shit. And so it was like, I showed up that day and I knew, I was like, the moon's going to rise at 6 p.m. It's just Pablo and I here. I know what I need to do. Like today is my day to try and execute. And yeah, all that just from like writing it down and kind of letting it build to that day. Then you reach that day and you feel like you're ready to go. And then, yeah, I guess to tie it back to the whole like art thing and everything, like I think through spending a lot of time with Hamish MacArthur over like the years, he's definitely been an influence and has forced me to even like believe even more in my belief that like climbing is not a sport. Climbing to me feels like more in line with dance. It's like expression, and it's like this weird confluence of physical, mental, and technical performance to create something. And to try and like explain something in like a very two-dimensional world through sport in the way that a lot of climbers do doesn't feel like a good reflection of it to myself. And I know the same for Hamish. And so it's like kind of this fun thing of like, how am I going to try and express this a little bit more?
I really appreciate it. I think it comes across as with Hamish. I talked to Hamish not too long ago. Saw him in Squamish, of course, when we were all out there, but then had him on the show. And yeah, very similarly is incredibly thoughtful and very in touch with the creative side of him, just as a person, but also as a climber. And I think that comes across really well in at least what you share. And I really love how you phrased being willing or open to kind of letting in that magic as as grown-ups, sometimes we turn that spigot off. And I've got kids, and so the magic is very much there because I've got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old, and I see the magic with them. And it kind of makes me acutely aware sometimes of the lack of magic that I have. But us as climbers, when we're out and we're just like wrestling this little pebble that's got some moss and some lichen on it, and you could just walk up the backside, but we're trying to find the hardest possible way up. Why not let in a little magic? I really like
totally. It's funny you mentioned that with kids. That's been like definitely being in the buttermilks a lot this season on like busy weekends and seeing families out and stuff. Kids have been like a good check-in point for myself to remember that. Like, it's so easy when you're like showing up to a boulder for like the 25th day, doing the same thing, to like be stuck in your routine and focus on the same things. And then you see some kid like running through the hillside, laughing, like chasing a dog or looking at some plants or something, or like standing under a huge boulder and their jaw is just on the floor. You know, it's like, it's so interesting. Yeah. It's fun to just let that, like, some of my like most precious memories from this season trying Lucid are the really weird ones when like I woke up one morning and I was gonna go climb on the boulder and like the forecast looked good and I woke up and you couldn't see more than like 2 meters ahead of you. There was like this heavy thick fog and I had kind of just gotten in for the season and I like walked down to the boulder with a bundle of sage that a friend had gave me and like walked around the boulder and like burned sage and cleansed the space from like a season prior and cleansed myself. And then like, I kid you not, I sat down and within like a couple minutes the sky opened and all the fog cleared and it dried and I could climb that day. And I was like, what a bizarre, weird, unexplainable experience that like I'll just remember for a while. Like all these weird things like that like, otherwise, if I wasn't willing to be open to that sort of thing, I probably just would have woke up, probably would have saw the fog and been like, well, shit, I'm going to go to the gym and climb on the moonboard now, I guess. And that wouldn't have been much fun.
No, where you need to take the sages to the fucking moonboard, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Cleanse the moonboard of those tweaky holds.
Yeah.
Get some grip back on them. These things are so polished and covered in rubber. Man, I love it. I just love it so much, dude. What a wonderful, refreshing, joyful, unexpected conversation and experience that this has been for me. I really appreciate you sharing it. You know, I've been working with Kevin Kukovich as my coach lately.
Oh, sweet. I know Kev well. Such a homie.
Yeah, such a good dude, and he just speaks so highly of you. And I've been looking forward to this conversation for so long, and it just did not disappoint, man. I really, really enjoyed it.
I appreciate that.
Well, as a parting note, you've alluded to a couple little things here, and you don't have to open up more than you would be comfortable with, but you've already mentioned spending some time on Everything's Karate, which is just like such an incredible line, and then talking about doing some more training for your body to prepare you for things to come. To the extent that you're comfortable, like what excites you? You've basically, with Lucid, as you mentioned earlier, kind of checked off that dream list that you had from, that you had made when you were a teenager or just a handful of years ago now, probably sooner than you had maybe expected. So then what happens next? What gets you excited?
Yeah, I've been trying to like think about how to branch. I've been like really just bouldering for the past while. And like since climbing, I thought bouldering was all I ever wanted to do, was like pursue greater physical difficulty and like be as strong as I can and pull the hardest moves I possibly can. And just in like the past couple of years, I've had a few other experiences that have like opened my eyes to what else is out there with climbing. And I very much want to move away from like being a boulderer and being a rock climber. Like I'd love to get to the place where like in a couple of years from now, maybe like no matter what shape I'm in or what I'm doing, I can go and climb on anything in whatever style would be like my dream as a rock climber. And so to get there, I kind of want to like branch out and see what else is out there. So pushing harder trad climbing, like the Cobra Crack was a really cool first experience for me of like, it's interesting showing up to a project where you're like more than strong enough to do it. And yet the like technical and mental things are by far what's holding you back. And in learning to push through that, I had like one of the coolest climbing experiences ever. Like very enriching experience. And so
cool.
I'm wanting to seek more of that out. I spent all of last summer top rope soloing on this like potential 515 9A plus gear line on the Chief, which is
Whoa.
what you saw me going up to that day when I walked by Portable.
Yeah.
And quite honestly was like too scared to lead on it last year. Like the gear is small, although good, but you're like 4 or 5 pitches off the ground on an overhung panel, like doing V11, V12 boulders over like 0.1, 0.2 pieces. It's like,
Oh God.
it's heady, but to me is like exactly the sort of challenge I'm looking for in climbing right now, that like kind of takes technical, mental, physical limits and requires everything to be perfected to execute. So that's something I'm really excited about.
Sick.
There's also, I want to, like, I quit my day job in the fall and I'm kind of just climbing full time this year. So I've got more time to explore. I'm really interested in trying to do some actual route development, because I have like had some first ascent, like Boulder experiences over the past years. And those are always like really different and fun. So I'm pretty keen. There's a couple aid lines on the Chief that I think I'll go wrap into when I'm home and look into the possibility of like a new free climbing line. Same thing for sport climbing. It's like a few cliffs I've looked at a little bit further out of town that I think I want to hike out to and like look into cleaning and bolting some new stuff and just having like an all-encompassing sport climbing and trad climbing experience.
Cool.
And then the big plan for like the end of this year is to try and get big and strong, because I'm a very light, skinny guy that can't haul much weight. And I want to go with a buddy of mine who's also mainly just a boulderer to the valley in the fall and just give a ground up free climbing attempt on the nose. Not expecting to like do it, but I've just been enjoying climbing for like the experiences it provides. Last summer I did this like 8-pitch 14A called the Prowl Wall, which was like a mainly bolted multi-pitch, very safe, very easy to figure things out on. But I had a blast like learning how to haul efficiently and climb efficiently through the day with a partner, and all of the like tactical things, and also just like how interesting it was to be like up on a wall pretty high off the ground, like climbing hard things and like not sure if you can do something. And it's just like this really interesting experience. And so I think I'm planning for sometime like late fall to show up in the valley with my buddy, and I think we're going to plan for like anywhere between a 10 and 14 day push, and we're calling it like our big vertical camping adventure. And I think in like a world that values pure difficulty and like ascent so much, it's easy to not think about style and also how style influences the experience. In a world I could go to the valley and hike to the top of El Cap and wrap into changing corners like over and over and over again until I'm ready to do it, and then just go up there and try and send everything and execute. But I'm like, I think it'll be really cool and memorable to have like my first time on El Cap be like questing up this 30-pitch beast that's super iconic and striking with a buddy who's also not really done much of this, and just go on a big adventure and see what happens. And like, worst case scenario, the free climbing is really hard and we have to aid climb to the top. Sounds really fun to me either way.
Wicked, dude. First you got to get Portable home, and then after your Portable gets home, then you
Then
can
we
do
can
any
get
number of
going.
these.
Yeah, totally. Still need to pick up Portable with my right hand. I can only pick it up with the left. It's insane.
You gotta send Portable with the other hand.
properly.
Yeah,
I'm
then-
convinced it's a little harder down here in the dry weather. I think the humidity back home creates some like sticky damp condition on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like, you know, like in E.T., the scientist came and they like put him in the bubble and he turned white and he was really scary. He just like changed. He changed when he was out of his element. And I think Portable is similar. You know,
Same
Portable's,
thing, yeah.
Portable needs to be returned to Superfly, and then the color will return.
Balance will be restored, yeah.
That's right.
All right, y'all, that wraps things up with Canadian Crusher, Ethan Salvo. Ethan, thanks so much, man. Really appreciated it. Awesome conversation. Really appreciated you being so open and vulnerable and just letting us into your process. Really, really fun, like climber's climber deep dive in this one. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you did and you want a little bit more Ethan Salvo in your world, Well, we got a bonus episode over on Patreon and Apple subscriptions where it's just all about portable Boulder and the bizarre disappearance and conspiracy theories around this little 1-foot block of granite that just up and poof disappeared one day from Squamish and then a few months later reappeared in friggin' Bishop with googly eyes on it. And so Ethan has got portable in his car and is going to be taking portable home. But we talk about there's just the circus around it. Not only the bizarre events of the disappearance and reappearance of portable, but also just the media circus around it and how everybody's reacted to it and maybe some theories about what has happened. And anyway, just like a fun, delightful, and totally silly conversation about portable over there on Patreon and Apple subscriptions. By the way, you can get a free trial on either of those platforms. You can get like a 7-day trial for free just to check out not only this bonus episode, but the Pro Clinic that I recently had out with Charlie Schreiber on dinos or Dr. Tyler Nelson on how to stay strong and powerful after age 30, and 150 hours of other bonus content and pro clinics and all that stuff. It's over at patreon.com/The Struggle Climbing Show, or if you're listening on Apple, you can double click right there in your podcast player. And if you're on Spotify, that's linked to Patreon. So you can just easily grab the trial, check it out. And then if you're willing and you like it, then stick around and help me make more of these shows, because I could not make this show without the support of awesome climbers like you. So thank you for supporting me if you can. And if you don't have the funds right now to support me, like with a Patreon subscription or whatever, I totally get it. I have also been poor in my days. And so there are a few no-cost ways that you can support me. You could swing over to my new YouTube channel. I've got a new YouTube channel. Okay, so I've got the Struggle YouTube, and I've got now a new channel that I just dropped called Ryan Devlin Climbing. And there's only a couple videos up there right now. But basically, that's where I'm going to share my personal climbing journey, my training, my struggles, my breakthroughs, things that I've learned over the years of doing this show, like training hacks and that kind of thing. And so that's just, youtube.com at Ryan Devlin Climbing or whatever, however the YouTube, I'll just put a link down in the show notes for you. But I just posted a video up there kind of recapping this trip to Vegas that I just had last week, where I had gone out there just ready to rip holds off of these rocks. I just felt so good and primed from all the strength training and kilter training that I've been doing. And then I got out there and it was going great until I just took a weird fall and tweaked my back, and it totally ended the trip. And now I'm all in my head about, can I be a boulderer and can I take falls and am I too old? And so anyway, that video is about that. So hit that link down there in the show notes. Just watching that video from start to finish and leaving a comment and liking it is really helpful. It doesn't cost anything, and it's really helpful because it tells YouTube that I've got a channel and a video that people are interested in. So if you have a second to check that out, I really appreciate it. And then I've got some other banger videos ready to come out on that channel this year, as well as over on the Struggle stuff, the usual things over on the Struggle channel. So that's a good way that you can support me if you've got a second. And the other ways that you can support me are to leave a rating and a review on wherever you're listening to this podcast, sharing it with your friends, and joining my email list. All of those links are right there in your show notes. And speaking of email lists, I've got a couple big giveaways coming up. I'm going to do a giveaway with Scarpa. We're going to give away some shoes and some other things coming up that are going to go out to the email list first. So make sure you are on that list and that it isn't going to your spam or promotions folder or whatever. Okay, so that's enough of that. Anything else I wanted to talk about? I don't think so. My back is feeling a little bit better, fortunately, and so I'm able to do some hangs. I can't climb just yet, but I am able to do some hangboarding. So I'll probably go do some hangboarding right now. I want to shout out the Honnold Foundation for keeping this podcast carbon neutral since day one. I saw Alex and Sonny out in Vegas a few days ago. I hurt my back and then just basically sat on their couch and ate donuts for a day, and it was awesome. I share a little bit more about that actually in the video that's up on the new YouTube channel. Kind of a funny string of events happened after I took that weird fall. So yeah, you could learn more about that Vegas trip there. What was I doing? Now I'm going backwards. I was shouting out the Honnold Foundation. Shout out Honnold Foundation. And congrats to Alex on climbing the building. That was really cool. I saw him just a couple days after he did it. I was pretty psyched. What a wild thing that was. Oh, God. It just made me so nervous to watch. But I could tell he was just delighted and having the most fun the whole time. In direct contrast to the time that I was having, on my couch, squirming around and texting Chris Kalous and Andrew Bisharat being like, what's happening? That was fun. Good times. What else was I shouting out? Oh, the people that helped to make the podcast. Glenn for helping me to edit them. Haley for helping me with the artwork. Philippa for helping me with the show notes. And all of you for listening, sharing, supporting, sharing your journey with me. I just really love it. I love hearing from you. So hit me up anytime on Instagram or Patreon or now over on YouTube. It's just so great to be a part of this climbing community with you. So I hope your training and your climbing are going great. I hope you're getting after it. And I will see you next week.